Welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOT. And this week we're going over UFC Vegas 39, headlined by Mackenzie Dern and Marina Rodriguez in a pivotal strawweight clash that should probably tell us who should be next up after this Rose and Wiley and all those women start figuring themselves out. But I think that one of these women will find themselves in a title shot maybe mid next year or late next year, but very, very important fight for us. We did lose a fight earlier this morning with Phil Hawes and Deron Winn. Deron Winn obviously having to pull out. Short notice, Chris Curtis jumps in, but unfortunately, even after he weighs in, Phil Hawes decides to decline on that fight, and now we're left with 9 fights instead of the 10 fights that we went into with the weigh-in. So still a good card in terms of betting, in my opinion. And I had to bring on some pretty damn good people to, or a damn good guest here to break down the fights with you guys. But before I bring him on, I do want to quickly throw out one last call for the Dog of the Night Challenge. If you guys are interested in it, the deadline is Sunday to sign up. There's a $25 pool, $100 pool, and a high stakes $500 pool. You pick one underdog for the next 10 events, accumulate the most profit, and if you place in the top 3, you get paid out with the pot. So the $500 high stakes is a new one that we're doing, and we already have 13 people sign up for it. I'm hoping we can get it closer to 15 to 16, and we have some pretty big names in there too, which I'll drop on Twitter later this evening once I confirm at least one more guy. So you guys have until Sunday to sign up for that, and if you guys are interested, slide in my DMs either on Twitter or on Instagram, and I'll get you guys set up for that. So probably one of the sharper games on social media, so make sure you guys check that out. All right, without further ado, let me bring on my guest here. We have my guy, Brandon Olivas, a Fight Ready member, I believe. I do want to give you the platform here in terms of introducing yourself to the crowd. Not many people may know who you are, but give us a little bit of a background in terms of, what got you into MMA and then how you ended up on the gambling side of things.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on, first of all. So I have been training since I was 14 years old. I got into this through jiu-jitsu. I had competed a lot on the circuit. As a blue belt, I was #1 in the world, couple-time Pan Am champion. And then somewhere along the line, after I turned 18, I decided, all right, now it's time for MMA. So I think other than Kamwela Kirk, I'm probably one of the longest tenured fighters with Santino DeFranco. So that's been my coach for pre-fight ready, pre-titles, pre-everything. I've been with him for a long, long time. Now, as far as the gambling side of things, so I actually represent Siege MMA. I train at Fight Ready. I used to train at Fight Ready a lot. Siege is my home now. And a few years ago, I had some problems with my hand. I don't have a lot of movement in my hand. That's about how my hand stays.
Oh, wow.
So I've had to sit on the sidelines for a bit, and I was like, all right, well, let's start studying fights and see if we can make it happen.
Perfect. No, that's awesome that you're able to kind of change that your direction and your path, right, and still be successful in it, because you're hitting some damn good plays, man. Ever since Santino threw me onto you, saying this is the guy that I kind of lean on for my gambling advice, and I've been following you for a couple of weeks now. I've been pretty impressed with what you've been able to bring to the table. Not to mention cashing Carlos Hernandez on this past weekend's Dana White Contender Series, somebody that you actually fought back in the day. Do you remember much about that fight, how it went? I know you ended up on the losing side there, but what from that fight kind of pushed you in thinking that Carlos Hernandez was the side this past week?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say this. At the time, I may not have been ready for that fight. Carlos at the time was already an amateur world champion. I was only 1-0. He had a record of 12-1. So it was a little quick for me to have that fight. Very close fight. I think it was 29-28. He ended up winning. I took him down second round. But the reason that I picked Carlos has every single thing that you can look for in a fighter. I mean, he's got fight IQ, he's got cardio, he's got skills everywhere. He doesn't lay on his back. I mean, the guy just does everything right. And watching the fight, I mean, you could see that play out. He had an opportunity to lay on his back and accept the takedown, and instead he was right back up, throwing in the clinch. I mean, man, he looked great, and I'm really happy for the guy.
Yeah, no, it was a great performance for him. Very close fight. I do think he deserved to win the fight there. But again, I was very impressed with his ability to get back to his feet, nullify the amount of control and damage that Juarez was actually having on top, and then dishing out his own damage in return. So a good win for Carlos there. And obviously, great cash for you as well, because that was like the closest line fight on the entire card. Not to mention, I think he opened up -180 and dropped all the way down to like even money, +100. And to be able to cash on it at that +100 mark or -105 even, absolutely amazing for sure, for sure. All right, let's not waste too much more time. down. Let's just get into the card here. We got 9 fights to go over. And the first one we got at the lightweight division between Charlie Ontiveros and Steve Garcia, both guys coming from different sides of the division, right? You got Ontiveros, who his last fight was actually up at 185, although he weighed in at 182 on short notice going up against Kevin Holland, but he seems to be a career 170er. Now coming down to 155 pounds. The guy looked in damn good shape this morning at the weigh-ins. And then on the flip side, you got Steve Garcia coming up from 145 pounds with very recognizable names on his record, even pre-UFC. Joe Warren was one of them that really stuck out to me. That was just like, oh shit, this guy was actually around the time that Joe Warren was still fighting. And he ended up taking an L in that fight in Bellator. But I think he brings some good skills into this fight against a guy in Charlie Ontiveros, who I'm not really that high on, right? 11-7 record. Seems a little bit more flashy, but not as efficient with it as, other guys that we see a little bit more flashy and are actually efficient with it. And then the Steve Garcia side of things, good power in his hands. I think he has decent grappling as well. I think if he catches the chin here of Charlie Ontiveros, it's probably going to go night-night. But I think my favorite spot on this card is the violence bet. I like to call them the violence bets here. The under, maybe not the under 1.5. I like having a little extra time. The under 2.5 is probably the way that I'd go if you have access to it. Minus 175. Even the fight doesn't go to decision, is getting massive steam throughout the day. It actually opened up at minus 170, hung around minus 200, and now it's down to minus 275. People are seeing exactly what a lot of people are saying, which is one of these guys is probably going to go out in this fight. I'm picking Garcia by knockout. How are you feeling in this matchup?
You know what? I think that's the right play too. This is a tricky matchup, man. I am not overly impressed with Garcia in the least bit, right? He had his back taken for 3 straight rounds and did nothing right. And we talk about the guys who do everything right. Guy who did nothing right in that fight, just laid there. Against Charlie Ontiveros, who, short notice against Kevin Holland, not an easy task. We really don't know what this guy has to offer. There's a massive size difference. There's weight classes for a reason. To pick a winner in this fight, I think you're on the right side of things. I think Garcia might be a little bit better. But with all the problems at Jackson Wink, with, regular people training with the fighters and all the madness that goes on there, we never know what we're going to get. I actually like that doesn't go the distances. I think probably the best side of this bet here.
Yeah, it's probably parlayable in this spot, right? If you have access to one of those bookies that allow you to parlay those spots, that's probably the best thing to do about it. And I think me and you spoke about this very briefly in terms of the Jackson Wink camp, right? I spoke about it a little bit earlier this week on one of my other streams that it seems like there's a giant fall from grace from that super camp, right? I don't know if you can label it a little super camp anymore. It's not Sanford MMA. It's not ATT. You know what I mean? Like, those are the top gyms now. But back in the day, everybody used to go to Jackson Wink to try to turn around their career or work with really good bodies. But how many guys are really there now, right? Jones, it seems like everything he's putting on Instagram is from his garage now. Holly Holm, obviously she's injured now. We don't really know. Dodson, I don't even know if he's there anymore. Now you got Steve Garcia and Khalid Murtazaliev, who seem to be the flag bearers for Jackson Wink over there. What do you think happened over there? Like, is there something that on the inside here as to why that team imploded the way that it did?
You know what? I think money is the root of all evil. And I think when you get so many guys that are doing so well in the UFC and making so much money, everybody wants a little piece of something. And that causes dissension, that causes people to leave and riff out, I actually think the best thing that they're doing, so they have Khalid, who obviously lost his last fight. I had never heard of Steve Garcia until I found him on this card. I'd never seen him before. Yeah, they do have a good young core of guys. So I want to shout out Davion Franklin, who we just saw in Bellator, looked phenomenal.
Beast. Absolutely. Yeah.
Liddell Pogue. They got Edwin Cooper. These young wrestlers. I'm missing one. Christian Edwards. These young guys, those guys are awesome. Those are great bets, especially on local circuits. But as far as the guys in the UFC, I mean, Steve Garcia, not overly impressed with him. I don't think he has that one punch crazy power. So this fight to me is not a minus 310. This is a toss-up fight. Who lands first?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think going with the violence here would probably be the best bet. I do have Steve Garcia reluctantly tied to a Hail Mary multi-event parlay that I put together, so I'm kind of going to be sweating that this weekend, but I do think he ends up winning and getting that knockout. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Lupita Godinez taking on short notice Silvana Gomez Juarez. Now, Juarez stepping in on kind of short notice, right? She was getting prepared to actually fight on the Contender Series this coming Tuesday. She gets bumped up a couple days. Weight cut didn't look bad in terms of having to compensate for the extra or the early start here for her. Looks great on the scales. one of the only, actually the only fighter to go up against Ariane Lipski in KSW during peak Ariane Lipski days and actually survive a full 5 rounds with her. You know what I mean? Like all the other fighters actually ended up getting finished. Juarez showed some decent skills, but in that fight, it seemed like she was a little bit too hesitant in terms of closing the distance and actually getting her own striking off. And Lipski was able to do her work from the outside. But when you see her in other fights, she looks like the goods, in my opinion. I don't think she deserves to be a plus 220 dog in this spot. I do think that the odds should be closer. I think she has a decent striking game, good knack for the leg kick and calf kick, in my opinion, and just decent combinations as well. Godinez, she's coming in with so much hype from the LFA scene, and then obviously she fell flat on her face against Jessica Penne, where she made a lot of questionable decisions, right? You don't want to be clinching with a girl like Jessica Penne, who has pretty much that route to win this fight. The clinch against the cage and all that. Very skeptical fight IQ from Godinez in those spots, because when she was at range and she was closing distance and landing his shots and getting back out, that's when she looks the best. And that's what I think she's going to need to do here. And she almost has an ace in the pocket in terms of her wrestling. If she wants to take this fight to the ground, I think she'll be able to and have some decent success. But I don't think that Juarez is any slouch. Personally, I have a half unit stab here on Juarez at plus 228. I thought the line is a little bit too wide. People are just so trigger happy on Godinez. And I think she's the goods as well. Don't get me wrong. Mexican, Canadian, shout out to Canada. But still, I feel as though people might be a little bit too confident in the spot when they should be giving Juarez a little bit more respect. So I like Juarez at that plus 228. I think her decision line is about plus 400, plus 500. So if you want to take a little bit more from that, that's probably a good way that she wins. But I gotta lean with Juarez here ever so slightly. How do you feel about this matchup?
I'm actually on the complete opposite side. I love Lupita in this spot. So, a lot of times with the women fighters, we're looking who's the biggest, who's the strongest, who hits the hardest. I mean, a lot of these tangible things, the things you can measure, a lot of times will win these girls' fights. Lupita actually fought a teammate of mine, Vanessa Demopoulos, and it was a pretty, that was a brutal fight. Vanessa did good, man. She can stick it out. But Lupita's boxing is so powerful and so strong. And I think the thing that's most impressive about her is the way that she can control the wrestling. So when I was taping Silvana, this is what I saw. Her last fight here was against Gisele Pereira.
Absolute mismatch of a fight. That probably should have been sanctioned to begin with. I will say this level of competition, a little bit sketchy for the Juarez side of things, especially when she looks really good.
Did you watch that fight?
Yeah, the referee, absolutely worst referee I've seen in my life.
Yeah, interesting. But what was interesting early on was Silvana got caught a couple times.
Yeah, her eye, they almost stopped the fight because of her eye, like absolutely swelling up. Very weird situation, but luckily for her, going off as I think she was a minus 700 favorite in that fight, she was able to get the finish in the second round. But if they stopped that due to that injury, that would not have looked good at all.
I think you just got to look at a couple key things here. Silvana's 36, which for women means a lot less. Level of competition and how much she's fought. She doesn't have that many fights for being 36 years old. They're giving her one last shot in the UFC, and unfortunately it's coming against Lupi Godinez, who honestly has gotten much better with time. Her level of competition was questionable for a long time. Now LFA champion. She's fought tough girls who are in the UFC. She does everything well enough. She's got good cardio, great boxing. She's very strong, very aggressive. I don't see a way that Lupi doesn't get it done here.
Do you think she gets the finish in this fight?
Probably not. I think Silvana's gonna stick it out, but I think it's gonna be dominant. When you're even having a close fight against somebody who's 4-6, that's alarming.
Yeah, I am looking forward to this fight. I do think that Juarez is a little bit better than her record may indicate, and obviously what we've been seeing on the regional scene, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this fight goes down tomorrow. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Charles Rosa going up against Damon Jackson. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 175 for Damon Jackson, plus 155 the return on Rosa, and I feel as though you actually have a pretty firm stance on this fight, so I'll actually let you kick this breakdown off. How do you like this fight, and who do you think ends up getting the win here?
Yeah, you know what? Hey, and thank you so much for sharing what me and Santino are doing. A lot of times we'd have 45-minute conversations and nobody listening. So now it's good to put it on tape.
You guys deserve it, brother. You guys have the knowledge. You guys have the hands-on experience to do this type of stuff. So I was on Santino. I saw that he had a YouTube channel, but wasn't keeping it up to date. I'm like, dude, fucking keep it up to date, man. Like, people want to hear what you have to say, especially when he came on my show. Everybody loved it. So I'm like, Santino, keep doing your thing and I'll push as much as I can. And I'm glad that he brought you on because you are a bright mind yourself. So lay it on me. Who do you like in this matchup between Jackson and Rosa?
Yeah, so one thing that we'd always talk about is how much we're not a fan of Charles Rosa. You know, it's just tough, man. He's got great wins. He's got close fights like Yair Rodriguez split decision. It's just insane how well he does for being not phenomenal. And it's just a tough way to say it. Kyle Bochniak's fighting in a couple weeks, and Tino doesn't hate anyone more than Kyle Bochniak, which is hilarious.
Really?
I don't
What's
know why.
his beef with Bochniak?
No idea. I love the guy, but I like Bochniak, not Tino. I like Damon Jackson here. I think Damon Jackson does everything well. I think he's fought tough guys. I mean, he's a veteran's veteran. Charles Rosa's 35. I just think Damon Jackson is a much better version of like Minner. His grappling is just phenomenal. You know, he just does everything well, but doesn't get tired. And I don't see a way he doesn't win this.
Dude, I'm kind of surprised at the comparison of Jackson and Minner, but it makes some sense, right? Those guys barely ever go to a decision outside of when Minner finally changed camps and went to James Krause and, you know, decisioned Charles Rosa the way that he did. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you here. I feel like the Leech Jackson is going to be able to go out there and do kind of similar to what Derek Minner did. His jiu-jitsu is good enough to hang with Ricardo Laborio, black belt, Charles Rosa. But I do think that Jackson will do what his nickname says. He's going to be a leech. He's going to take this fight to the ground and he's going to just grind him out, man. Charles Rosa has good submission defense, as obviously we've been seeing over his last several fights. Justin James had him in a super tight arm triangle choke near the end of that fight. I had heavy money on Charles Rosa in that fight because I'm not a big fan of Justin James. I didn't think he was UFC caliber or anything like that. And goddamn, Charles Rosa made me sweat that 15 minutes out.
Hey, you're 100% right. When you're going to a close decision, and I just rewatched the fight with a guy who's Justin James level, I think Damon should do all right in this fight.
I absolutely agree with you, brother. So yeah, I like Jackson here. I like Jackson by decision as well, which is not something that he does often, right? In his 24 pro fight career, only ever gone to a decision once. I think we see the second time tomorrow night where he goes out there and grapple fucks. I like to call it grapple fucking, Brandon. When you go out there and just absolutely dominate in that aspect, I think that's what we're going to see from the Jackson side of things. I will say this though. If it stays in striking range, I think it gets a little bit fishy. I think Rosa, his striking is not that bad. One thing that I've noticed on tape is when he's in his southpaw position, he likes to do that karate style. You'll hear his corner kind of scream out, Wonder Boy, do the Wonder Boy. And you see him kind of kicking a lot more. And then when he's in the orthodox stance, he likes to box a little bit more. And I do think he has a better striking than Jackson in this situation. However, poor takedown defense and then poor ability to get back to his feet. I think Jackson wins this fight pretty handily as well. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Alexander King Kong Romanov going up against Jared Vanderaa. Obviously, heavy chalk here on Romanov. He's sitting around minus 600, plus 450 the return on Jared Vanderaa. Big fan of Romanov myself, obviously, but it seemed to have a little bit of flaws in his last fight against Juan Espino. And in my opinion, Brandon, I'm going to ask you as a fighter. You watched the tape. You watched that fight. There was a little bit of acting going on there, was it not? Let's be honest.
Horrible. I mean, that's a guy who wants out, right?
Exactly. Like the slow motion replay of the nut shot made it look worse than the actual, like, but it wasn't that bad. He just he tapped him. He nut tapped him with his knee. And then you see him go down like a sack of potatoes because the guy was dead tired. So it looks like he has a bit of a cardio issue, but with that said, there was a lot of grappling going on in that fight. And you know as best as anybody that when you're in those clinch positions, jockeying for position, trying to get a takedown or something like that, that exerts a lot of energy. And normally Romanov doesn't have any type of resistance to deal with, but he was dealing with resistance in a high-level wrestler in Juan Espino. Luckily for him, he comes out on the winning side there. Here against Jared Vanderaa, though, I feel like he's going to be able to get Vanderaa down. Vanderea's takedown defense doesn't look the greatest, albeit training out of Dan Henderson's training facility, right? I think that's where his home gym is. Sam Alvey, those guys. I believe Ashley Yoder's out there as well. But doesn't seem to really show much of it inside the cage. Obviously, in that Sergey Spivak fight, we saw that Spivak had tremendous success. Fellow Moldovan as well, taking down Jared Vanderaa and then having that finish in the second round. I will say this, though. Jared Vanderaa, round 3 plus 2,000, piques my interest ever so slightly. Because if he is able to survive those first 2 rounds, we've seen Romanov. We've already seen him give up. He's 14-0, but that 14th victory has a little bit of an asterisk beside it. So the pick is obviously Romanov within the first 2 rounds, but I do have a little bit of a sprinkle on Vanderaa in round 3, just as insurance. How do you feel about this matchup, brother?
Yeah, this is one. So actually, one of my first bets when I started really killing it was a Tracy Cortez Romanov parlay, $2,000 on it, and man, I thought I robbed somebody because that was such a close fight, man. It made me nervous. Um, the line on this is, was he minus 700 now?
Yeah, closing in on minus 700 on certain spots.
Yeah, if you want to put this in a parlay, more power to you. And I'm not talking to you, just talking to the viewers. This to me is just not worth it at all, man. With when you're trying to play safe, if you're really trying to go for it and you just want to add as many things as you can, fine. I know he should win. But he makes such poor decisions. We saw that with his cardio.
Yeah.
Standing on the feet, he's got very powerful striking, but what heavyweight have you seen throwing spinning back fists and spinning everything? And the thing that I worry about is all those high energy techniques, the insane wrestling, and the guy still let Roque Martinez stand up, which is insane. The guy who's known for never getting up ever stood up on him, right, and made it to a round 2. So, do I think he's going to win? Yes. But I would not touch a winner in this fight at all because he's such a liability with his cardio and his bad decisions.
Yeah, this is a spot that he should go out there and do what Romanov does, right? If he can't do it against a guy like Jared Vanderaa, then things get sketchy for him as he continues to go up the ladder here. I will say this, though. Vanderaa very much surprised me in his last fight against Justin Tafa, where he was able to go out there and outstrike him for 15 minutes. I know a lot of people, probably even yourself, thought the only way Vanderaa wins that fight is if he gets Tafa to the ground because Tafa is more than likely the better striker. But we saw a great game plan from Vanderaa in terms of throwing combinations. And then any time we saw Tafa throw even one shot, we saw Vanderaa immediately respond with a combination of his own so that he can go out there and double, triple the type of output that Tafa was throwing out there. And I thought that was a great game plan on his side. Did that surprise you as well?
You know what? I didn't watch that fight. That was one. I've been kind of trying to avoid this fight a little bit. But I've seen in the comments here, someone says after round 2, it gets tricky. And, that's the thing, right? You have heavy money on Romanov and you see him come out like this, round 3, you see Vanderaa, all right, it's go time. It makes you a little scared.
Yeah, I would be absolutely shit my pants if I have Romanov tied in every single parlay, and this fight makes it into the third round. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Chris Gutierrez going up against Felipe Colares, and I feel like we're going to have some differing opinions in this spot. I will actually let you kick it off, but in terms of the odds, we're actually looking at minus, where is it at? Minus 230 now for Chris Gutierrez, plus 210, plus 200 is the return on Felipe Colares. So there seems to be some action on Colares coming in and bringing Gutierrez down. So I'll actually let you kick this one off, brother. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty clear-cut one for me. Gutierrez is slick. And my rub with Gutierrez used to be his volume. And you can hear them calling for it in every single fight. More volume, more volume, more volume. And his fights would end up being so freaking close because he's just not throwing. He's throwing calf kicks, and if that doesn't work, we're just running around, right? I think as he's gone on in his career and as he gets better, I think his volume has picked up. His striking is so intelligent. It's so slick. He's one of those few guys that you're just like, man, it's beautiful to watch his striking. Now, I saw a lot of people saying his takedown defense is not so good. I'm actually very impressed with this takedown defense. We look at the Dern fight, and everyone wants to go to the Dern fight, which, in my opinion, was a horrible draw. I don't think you get a 10-8 round for laying on somebody but not actually doing anything, not threatening. He's got phenomenal wins, Ewell. But the biggest comparison I guess I'd want to make in this fight is the Geraldo de Freitas, who he fought to a split decision. I think is a way better version of Colares. I think Colares is just too many holes on the feet. I don't think his wrestling is near good enough. We saw his, gas tank issues. We've just seen so many holes in Colares' game. I think Gutierrez takes this one home pretty easy.
Personally, I think the line is a little bit wide in my aspect. So the Cody Dern fight, great example to bring up there. Obviously, he got 10-8 in that first round, probably deserved to be a 10-9, let's be honest. But his ability to control him the way that he did in that first round was very telling to me, especially with Colares, who has been able to control opponents in the past with that back style, with that back mount that he's has. The thing for me with Gutierrez is if he doesn't have that calf kick or that leg kick going for him, what else is there really to work with, right? We've talked about his volume and output issues. His striking obviously looks decent in terms of his hands, but I feel like a lot of his success is predicated around being successful with that leg kick and that calf kick. And it's all of this has really started since the Vince Morales fight, right? That was like 3 fights ago. Then he has a Dern fight. Then he has the Ewell fight, who we know Ewell striker. He's not going to engage in wrestling or anything like that. He will more than likely try to go out there and outstrike you. The Geraldo De Freitas fight, very interesting about that fight. De Freitas was the minus 170 favorite going into that fight, which kind of caught me off guard. And then Chris Gutierrez goes out there and does what he does. But very close fight. MMA Decisions has that literally down the middle in terms of who deserved to win that fight. First round, in my opinion, was De Freitas. Second round, I believe, was Gutierrez. Third round was pretty close from what I remember. The thing that I like about Colares here, in all 4 of his UFC fights, 8 takedowns attempted, leads me to believe that, and I see it on tape myself, he's not going to stay at that kicking range. He's not going to stay at that striking range to let Chris Gutierrez get his game off. I think he's going to be able to push him up against the cage. May not be able to get takedowns, but there are instances where I've seen Chris Gutierrez kind of just give his back to try to disengage from these clinch positions, and I think that's an opportunity for Colares to kind of just latch on and kind of just hold on for dear life. He may not need to get takedowns to win this fight. He may just need to kind of push him up against the cage and have some success there. Cardio issues, a little, I think they might be a little bit over-exaggerated, and the fact that even after getting whooped on by Montel Jackson for 2 rounds, the guy's still going out there and, putting on some output, moving forward, even against Luke Sanders as well, kind of moving forward, having some success in that fight as well. I just think the line is too wide, man. I do like Colares in this spot. I do think he presents the type of difficulties that we've seen Chris Gutierrez deal with poorly in the past. Striking, obviously, all in favor of Chris Gutierrez if he can get his strikes off. Felipe Colares, super hittable, but never been finished in any one of his fights. He's been hurt tremendously, but Chris Gutierrez, not much of a finisher outside of that leg kick knock or finish of Vince Morales that he had. I believe before that, his last KO victory was over Jimmy Flick, who striker, not at all. You know what I mean? We know Jimmy Flick is mainly just a jiu-jitsu guy. And then before that, I'm just not impressed with the power that we've been seeing from Gutierrez. So although he might be able to light up Colares on the feet once they actually get that distance, I think more often than not, we're going to see Colares be pushing him up against the cage, going for takedowns and trying to get that control time. And at plus 215, which is a number that I got in at, I feel a little bit confident in that. Is there any type of rebuttal or anything you want to throw out there, or do you want to move on to the next fight for this one?
Yeah, let me hit the mic drop right here.
Let's go.
Colares lost a split decision to Domingo Pilarte.
Oh, no, he won. He won that fight.
He won. Sorry. Split decision with Domingo Pilarte. That's all you need to know.
Okay. All right. There we go. I'm looking forward to this. I will say, though, if Gutierrez is able to keep this at range, his fight will look way better than minus 230 as well. Let's just see if he can get there and give us that output as well. All right. Let's move on to the next fight here. This is oh, wow, we're already on the main card. I forgot that this is a 9-fight card. I'm so used to like these 12, 13, 14 fights. I'm just like, oh, God, we're already through this. I do want to take this time to remind you guys to hit that like, hit that subscribe, and then hit my guy Brandan with the follow as well. I do have his IG listed in the description below, as well as his show with Santino DeFranco that he does every week. Is there a schedule that you guys have for that, or is it just whenever you guys have the time, you guys throw it out there?
We're working on it. We're both super busy. I think we're going to try to get it out on either Tuesday or Wednesday so that everybody has time to watch and take a look at it.
Perfect. Yeah, the link to their last video is actually in the description below. So go over there and give them some love. Obviously, you guys can go out there and see Santino as well, give his takes. But make sure you guys subscribe to Santino's channel as well and show these guys some love. All right, let's move on to the next fight here, Brandan. We got Maria Agapova going up against Sabina Mazo. In terms of odds, we are currently looking at minus 175 for Mazo, plus 155 for Maria Agapova. So interesting, the tale of 2 different fights, right? You got Agapova minus 1,200 in her last fight against Shanna Dobson. Feels like she saw those odds and felt like she had a high ceiling to kind of to achieve, or have to prove to people that she deserves being that minus 1,200 favorite, which is why we saw her go out there like a banshee and that first round completely gas herself out and then eventually get finished in that second round by Dobson. And then on the flip side with Sabina Mazo, you have her coming in as a pretty heavy favorite in her last fight against Alexis Davis. And I think Marina Moroz was the perfect person to put out the game plan and the blueprint to beat a girl like Sabina Mazo. We saw Justine Kish deal with it perfectly until that last minute or 2 minutes of that fight where she got clubbed and subbed right at the end, but she was going on to win that fight in my opinion. And then Alexis Davis was able to deal with the striking and then eventually get her takedowns and drag this fight to the ground. Does Maria Agapova have that type of grappling? I don't think so. I don't think she has that relentless type of wrestling to continues to get Mazo down, pushing her on her back foot, putting her up against the cage, dragging her to the ground. I think Agapova will have the most success in round 1, and then after that, I think we'll see Mazo take over, get comfortable in that striking range, and I wouldn't be surprised to see another classic patented head kick knockout from Mazo here. I do think she ultimately wins by decision, but I'm not counting out a knockout here either from Mazo. I like Mazo on the spot. Think she's a pretty safe spot as well. Yeah, how do you feel about this matchup, brother?
Yeah, this is maybe the toughest one. It's maybe one of the toughest ones on the card. Striking wise, I don't think it's close, right? I think Agapova's striking is just not even better. It's just stronger. It's just harder. But really the big concern is the gas tank and her fight IQ, which is the two things that I look for in every single fight. So my brain says easy, Sabina Mazo, easy. But my eyes are telling me that Agapova is going to smoke her. And I don't know which one to go with. Are you familiar with all the stuff that they're talking about with her training camps and the drugs and stuff?
Yeah, apparently she was at ATT. They kicked her out of ATT. I think it was Marina Moroz that was kind of like the whistleblower for that. But I've seen her at MMA Masters. I've seen her at ATT Sunrise, which I didn't even know was a thing until she actually went over there. Yeah, I'm seeing her jump around even at Sanford. She had a cup of coffee over there at Sanford as well.
Yeah, that's super bizarre. I mean, you got to probably look at the stability of Sabina Mazo. But here's something interesting, and I'm still messing around with this. It's a theory, so the people in my Telegram have kind of seen me play with this. But I have a theory with these odds, and I don't know how well it's working with the UFC yet, so I'm still kind of playing with it. Let me see. Oh, but their records are the same. Never mind. This one doesn't apply.
I think I skimmed the podcast that you did with Franco DeFranco, and I think that I heard you talking about it, and it might pertain to this next matchup that we're going to be talking about with Elliott and Nicolau. So let's just get a quick pick out of you for Agapova and Mazo, though. Ultimately, if I'm putting a gun to your head, who do you like in that spot?
I gotta go with what I think always works, and it's got to be cardio and fight IQ. So let's go Mazo on this one.
I love it. I'll be right there with you as well. All right, let's move on to the next fight, which is Tim Elliott going up against Matthias Nicolau. In terms of odds, we're looking at -2. Wow. Money coming in on Tim Elliott. We got Nicolau around -190 and +170 is just the return on Tim Elliott here. Personally, I really like Nicolau. I do think he's the shit. I think he's a top 5 flyweight, but I think he needs to go out there and continue to prove it. The Manal Cap fight, his return to the UFC, I have no idea why he got released from the UFC to begin with. Gets knocked out by Dustin Ortiz as a heavy favorite in that fight, and then just gets sent packing. I mean, only one loss, didn't make any sense to me, but did what he needed to do on the regional scene, managed to make his way back to the UFC, and then wins a razor-thin close decision against Manal Cap, who a lot of people thought Manal Cap deserved that decision. Very close fight. I was still impressed with what we saw from Nicolau that night. I think he's a better striker. I think he has more power in his hands, way more discipline on the feet as well. We know Tim Elliott, his freaking Instagram handle is awkward MMA. So you already know what you're going to be seeing whenever you see Tim Elliott step inside the cage. But I do think we'll see Nicolau go out there, land the better strikes. If he does get taken down, that's kind of my issue there. But he is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, seems to show decent work off of his back. And Elliott seems to sometimes put himself into bad positions where other guys are able to lock on chokes and, able to get a submission victory over him. I know this doesn't have much bearing on how this fight's going to go on, but he did have a submission grappling match with Mr. Patchy Mix, super high level Patchy Mix back in July, and we saw Patchy Mix take home that neck within a minute of that fight, so he was able to lock that up, and that just goes to show a little bit further in terms of Tim Elliott's, even in a grappling match, the lack of submission defense at times, right? You got to protect your neck, especially in a grappling match, and he gets it snatched up almost immediately. I think Nicolau could do that as well. Again, my concern, this is one of the best versions of Elliott we've been seeing over the last little while. We have this little joke that we've been having in the chat, the live chat community with James Cross. The last time he came on, he goes, yeah, my gym's great and all that, but I have all these broken fighters that come to me and expect me to fix them. So I call him the mechanic James Cross now. And Tim Elliott's one of those guys, right? 2-fight winning streak now. Close fight against Ryan Benoit, I would say that. But the last time around, he was able to use his wrestling very effectively against Jordan Espinoza and then win that fight via decision there. But I just don't see him having that much success against Nicolau in this spot in terms of his grappling. I think Nicolau will be able to get back to his feet, or if it's a desperation shot from Tim Elliott, I wouldn't be surprised if Nicolau snatches up a neck of his own and takes home that submission victory. I really like Nicolau in this spot. I was kind of surprised at what the odds were here. Obviously, heavy action came on him. I believe he was -150 at the opener. ballooned up to minus 200, and now there's a little bit of buyback coming back from Elliott, which is why we have Nicolau around minus 180, minus 190 in the spot. I like Nicolau. I'm going to say by submission, but obviously decision is the most likely outcome. I think he snatches up that neck. Brandon, how do you feel like this fight's going to go down?
Yeah, so when I first saw this, I think you and me messaged last week, and we were instantly both like, Nicolau.
Yeah.
I had been getting ready for Nicolau in that Manel Kopp fight. And, man, watching his tape and going, man, this guy is – how's anybody ever going to beat this guy? How's anybody ever going to beat this guy? He does every single thing well. Now, admittedly, I didn't dive into his tape this time because the line is what's scaring me. So if you guys want to hear the theory, it's really, really quick. But basically, when you have a guy that's got an insane, phenomenal record fighting somebody whose record is not that good, if the line is very, very close, within, I'd say, minus 200 or, less than that, they're telling you who they think is going to, like, who's going to win the fight. And I think right now the record on that is like 8-4, with like 2 of those being split decisions. So it's a very, very, 2 of the losses being split decisions. So it's working more times than it's not working. But my eyes, my brain, everything in me is telling me there's no way that Nicolau can lose this fight. I don't think Tim Elliott's striking is powerful enough to knock him out. I think Nicolau, I think he just does everything well. Now, the one thing I do worry about is something that you said is he's got some good stuff off of his back. That's the last thing I ever want to hear. I never want to see how somebody is off their back. I want to see how they are getting back up to their feet or getting back on top, right? Because the problem with black belts is they fall too in love with their jiu-jitsu. Everybody thinks they're amazing at jiu-jitsu. When I competed, I thought I was the best thing in the world and I was going to submit all these people. You'll be lucky to ever see me on my back now, staying there in sparring or MMA, anything like that, right? The Kopp fight scared me just a little bit, just how much he was backing up and the volume that Kopp had. I don't think he's going to get knocked out or submitted. But the thing that worries me is Tim Elliott's awkwardness and his volume, truthfully. So I'm either going to go in at Nicolau or possibly stay away from this one.
I absolutely understand your concern regarding the volume and output of Tim Elliott, because optically speaking, that looks really good to the judges, right? When you have the guy kind of moving forward, throwing shots, I hope, and I think this will happen. We'll see some good counter striking here from Nicolau, kind of just waiting for Elliott to kind of overextend on certain punches. Again, not very good with his striking defense, right? He heavily relies on head movement and getting out of the way, keeping his hands down the entire time. I forgot which fight it was, but there's one fight where he's clearly losing the fight and was just marching down his opponent with his hands down, not throwing anything. I know he's now with James Charles, and James is probably yelling at him to be like, dude, fucking throw something. Marching forward and doing nothing is not helping you with the judges. So I'm sure he's learned from that. So very much looking forward to seeing how this one goes down. Shout out to my guy, Pocket QB Lamar Jackson, who is throwing out there. 0-5 is Elliott's record as an underdog in all of his fights. He wins the majority of his fights when he's the favorite, but as an underdog, he's just not able to pull off the trigger here. I actually posed this question to my buddy John last night. I'm going to ask you the same question here. I'm not sure if you're privy to this information, but you're obviously very familiar with Ali Bagotinov.
Yeah.
So obviously Tim Elliott, Bagotinov fought back in the day. If from memory you were able to put together a betting line for that fight, what do you think the betting line was for that fight?
Without cheating?
Without cheating. Don't you dare, Brandon.
Yeah, well, just the fact that you're phrasing that question is probably Tim Elliott as a favorite.
Yeah, I guess I kind of showed my hand right there, but I was a little bit surprised, man. Ali Bagotinov back in his, on his run to the title there, I thought he was one of the better guys, and I'm kind of surprised that Tim Elliott was a minus 170 favorite going into that fight, and we got Bagotinov roughly around plus 150. But that was before I went like serious with the gambling, so I probably would have hit that a little bit earlier there. But yeah, that kind of surprised me there for sure. But yeah, let's see if Tim Elliott can right his wrongs this weekend and actually get his first win as an underdog. I just don't see it happening.
I really think Nicolau, I think they engage in grappling, and I think Nicolau is just going to show his caliber on this one. if the line wasn't so scary, I almost wish Nicolau was like minus 330 or something like that, something crazy.
That'll make you more confident, eh?
Yeah.
I will throw this prop out there, plus 415 for Nicolau to win by submission, if anybody fancies that there. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. Co-main event time. We got Randy Rude Boy Brown going up against the only fighter that missed weight this morning, Jared Gooden, coming in at 174 pounds, missed a weight by, I believe that's 3 pounds he misses weight by. Interesting fight here because technically speaking, Randy Brown is much better than this guy, right? Great striking, decent jiu-jitsu as well. Jared Gooden is just this berserker in a sense, right? He likes to move forward, likes to throw big shots, but at times he can be disciplined about it. We saw the Alan Jouban fight, pretty back and forth fight there. But the last fight against Nicholas Stolze, good God, that lead left hook that he just continued to land on Stolze. He landed like 4 or 5 times, and then the 5th one finally knocked out Stolze in that fight. It kind of reminded me of Sam Alvey against Marcin Prachnio, where Prachnio just kept moving forward and getting hit with the same thing and kept getting dropped. That's what happened with Stolze. Stolze just had no answer for that lead left hook, and Jared Gooden does pack a punch in his, pack some power in his punches, and he was able to get the finish in that fight. Here against Randy Brown, one thing that I really found interesting with last couple of fights for Randy Brown, when people decide to attack him with the calf or a leg kick heavy game, it causes him problems. Obviously, Vicente Luque, much better fighter than Jared Gooden, don't get me wrong, but was very effective with that. Alex Oliveira, for as long as that fight was on the feet, was absolutely torching that lead leg of Randy Brown. And the one thing that I found interesting was that Randy Brown didn't even try to switch stances. Like, it didn't even seem like he was comfortable enough to go to a secondary stance to kind of just reserve the damage that he was taking on that lead leg. Luckily enough for him, he was able to land it straight down the middle, plants Oliveira on his butt, and then we know what happens after that. He grabs his back and gets that one-arm rear naked choke. To me, it seems as though if Jared Gooden, who has shown decent leg kicks in the past, if he goes out there and tries to approach it with the same game plan and can stay safe enough until he damages that lead leg of Randy Brown enough, then lets the striking go with his hands, I think he can knock out Randy Brown in this spot. I picked Jared Gooden earlier this week to win this fight via KO, but I feel like the only way you can play him is by KO, which was roughly around plus 400, which is some pretty damn good odds for a guy whose only path to victory is a knockout, in my opinion. But if this fight does get stretched, if it does go to a decision, you got to think Randy Brown wins this fight with the technical and more superior striking. I am a little less confident on the Jared Gooden side, obviously with the missing weight this morning, but it didn't seem like he was really killing himself to make the weight either. It just seemed like he was just accepting of the fact that he was going to miss weight in that spot. So again, this seems clear as day. Randy Brown, the way more technical fighter, should go out there and start Gooden. But I do think that Gooden, if he can establish that leg kick early here, he should be able to go out there and find that chin and knock out Randy Brown, which is what I'm going to go with. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, I just want to read his Instagram post. Sometimes I'll make plays purely based on people's Instagrams. I just Instagram plays.
Hit me.
All right. What's up, guys? Hate to say I missed weight by 3 pounds, but the fight is still on. Game time tomorrow, co-main event. So when I call these Instagram plays, I think my biggest one is actually one of my bigger bets I've ever placed. Dustin Jacoby versus Darren Stewart. And I was so back and forth on that fight until I started looking at Darren Stewart's Instagram. And you start to realize that some guys are UFC fighters and some guys are not UFC fighters. And to me, Jared Gooden is going to be the toughest guy ever on the local circuit. I mean, he's going to have crazy knockouts. He's going to have a 30-10 record or whatever it is on local circuits. But to me, he's just not a UFC fighter. When you say something like, hey guys, what's up? Sorry, I missed weight. Fight's still on. Let's go. I don't think he's UFC caliber. I don't think his skills are matching that level. Now, Randy Brown, man, sometimes he looks so sloppy. But, man, he is just clean. When he wants to box, his boxing is beautiful. He wrestles, he grinds. He's just a winner, man. Even when he's getting leg kicked, he finds ways to get the job done. I really like Randy Brown here in almost any way he wants to do it.
I like it. In terms of missing weight, I know you've been in corners and you've cut weight yourself and all that type of stuff. What do you make of a guy that comes in 3 pounds over and doesn't even look like he broke a sweat to try to make the weight?
Yeah, it means a lot of different things. First of all, you hate money. You want to lose 20% for no reason. Like
$3,000 if he loses this fight, he loses $3,000, and obviously the other half of his paycheck.
Yeah. So, but usually it means one of a couple things. So, short notice, it's understandable. Sometimes that happens, but I don't think this was short notice, was it?
Not in my opinion. No, I don't recall it being.
The guys that I know that have missed weight over my time are guys that had consistently quit in the room. They quit in the room, they quit in the sauna, they quit in their fights. Those are the guys that miss weight. or you're not in shape. And either way, I think it goes the side of Randy Brown. I think he's just too big. He's too long, and he fights very, very smart.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to see how Gooden decides to approach this. Again, if he doesn't leg kick here, I think he gets absolutely torched on the feet again. I feel that is a chink in the armor of Randy Brown striking, and it was shown obviously in his last 2 fights. Luckily for him, like I said, he got bailed out in the Oliveira fight with that beautiful right down the middle. Let's see if it works out for him this weekend as well. All right, main event time. Brandon, I'll let you kick this one off. We got Marina Rodriguez going up against Mackenzie Dern, minus 185 for Dern, plus 170 the return on Marina Rodriguez. A pretty binary fight to break down here, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts in terms of how you think it's going to go.
God, I'm going to be the biggest bummer because I think I never bet main events. They're just too tough and too unpredictable, and everybody is so high level. I mean, I think everyone thinks the same thing. This is going to go Mackenzie just grabs a hold of her and yanks something off immediately because she's so strong and she's so talented. Or this fight goes, to the 4th round, the 5th round, and then Marina starts to put it on her with the volume and the cardio. But, this is a tough one. I got to root Mackenzie. I started with Megaton, her dad, in my jiu-jitsu career. I've known Mackenzie for a long time. Her level of jiu-jitsu is just – there are levels to the game, and she's 5 levels above that.
Wow.
So I got to go Mackenzie, and she's getting better all the time. I said Marina just for volume and everything, but I'm not going to put money on it. So let's go Mackenzie.
I like it. Now, one thing that I like to talk about, especially when we get these binary types of matchup where you need someone who obviously needs a takedown or the other person who needs to stuff those takedowns and get their striking going, is that the person who has the grappling advantage has way lower variance in terms of being able to find success. Whereas in the striking, there's a little bit more higher variance, right? You got the counters obviously coming back your way. You got to be perfect with your precision, your timing, your power, everything on the feet. That's what Marina needs to do. Whereas Mackenzie, if she is successful in dragging this fight to the ground, it pretty much one-way traffic on the ground, right? I'm not sure Marina Rodriguez has the greatest get-up game. We saw Michelle Watterson kind of control it for about 4 minutes in the 4th round of their last fight. I think Mackenzie Dern, if she gets this fight to the ground, she may only need 1 takedown, right? And she doesn't rush anything. That's one thing I found very interesting in her last fight against Nina Nunes, where she gets the takedown with 3 minutes left in the fight or in that round, and she just slowly works her way to full mount. She slowly works her way to get the grips that she needs to get that armbar, and then she pulls off the armbar with 12 seconds left in the round. She's mindful of the clock, don't get me wrong, but she just waits for those opportunities to explode and finally get that submission. That's what she was able to do last time around as well. So I do think that she finds that submission. I do think she ends up getting the takedown here within the first 2 rounds and then locks up a submission here. Submission obviously roughly around plus 110, plus 100. As you would believe for any Mackenzie Dern fight. But one thing that I kind of find interesting, I always throw a little bit of a dart at it. When you have somebody that has such a grappling advantage, and a lot of people think that the finish is going to come via submission, there's always that opportunity for a ground and pound, from the back position, right? The back mount, you stretch our opponent out, just put together 5, 6, 7 strikes, referee might stop it. Plus 1,600, I think the line was on Mackenzie Dern via TKO. And a ground and pound finish could absolutely happen, especially if Marina Rodriguez is doing a good job in terms of protecting her neck and fighting hands and all that stuff. And if Dern is able to, flatten her out, get her on her belly, she should be able to put that together as well. But let's be honest, again, that's just a tinfoil hat kind of conspiracy that I have here with the plus 1,600. What do you think about that type of approach as well, right? Why not?
Oh, I love it. And you know what? I think with Fight IQ, these jiu-jitsu people, the more fight IQ they have, the less they're going to think about everything has to be a choke, right? When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, but the more that they learn, the more that they know, they realize punching is the way. Punching will open up everything, but you can also finish a fight. I love that. If that's plus 1,600, I 99% of the time never put a prop bet, but that might be something that I definitely throw.
Maybe if you just send a little text to her pops or something, it'll work out that way. But I do like Dern in this spot. I do think she gets a takedown. I do think she'll be able to withstand the damage that Marina will be throwing out there on the feet. Everybody's making this Marina Rodriguez is this crazy knockout puncher. And yeah, she finished Amanda Hebos, but I truly believe Hebos was a little bit of a fraud in regards to her striking. Everybody thought she was this great striker, but I thought that she just, when she went up against a legitimate striker like she did against Marina Rodriguez, we saw it go there. And I think that Hebos was kind of drinking her own Kool-Aid in the fact that she would be able to compete in the striking with Rodriguez. And we saw that was not that did not come to fruition here. I think Dern is making good improvements in her striking, should keep her safe in the striking realm, and then eventually wait for that opportunity to drag this fight to the ground and lock on that submission. Do you have any last thoughts on this matchup, brother?
Yeah, actually, I love what you said about the striking. You're right. Like things come back at you. You know, you can always get clipped if that's your thing. But when you're grappling and you're that high level, it's you're just in a different world. And I'm seeing a lot of the comments talking about how Marina has gotten better. Again, this is one of those tough ones. It's one of two ways: Mackenzie early while she's fresh, or Marina, survives long enough to finally come up. Then you see that that we kind of talked about, which is that's always the scary moment if you have money on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's a wrap on the breakdowns here, but we do want to end the show off on with a lot of people enjoy is the lock of the night play from myself and obviously from Brandon here. Again, lock using very flimsily. We're talking about our most confident play on the card. Personally, I'm going with Matthias Nicolau. I really like him in this spot. I think the odds are great as well. I got in at minus 196 and kind of bummed that the action is actually coming back now when we're getting a better line on Nicolau. But in terms of a straight bet, I think Nicolau wins here as long as he's able to really get a striking going and can get up from bottom or at least give some proper scrambles here to Tim Elliott. I think he can hold up, and if not show better scrambles than Tim Elliott, I think he comes out on the winning end here. And I'll even be sprinkling a little bit of that submission prop at plus 400. Brandon, what is your most confident play on the card? What's the parlay or straight bet that you like? Nothing worse than minus 250.
Yeah, this is an easy one for me. I have a few that I like to play, but the only one I've actually placed so far, I'll do the rest of it tonight. I like Damon Jackson, and I like to parlay that with Jared Gooden and Randy Brown over 1.5.
Oh, wow. That's a bit of a contrarian take, in my opinion. A lot of people think, like, albeit, I like the under 2.5s rather than under 1.5, but that feels like that's going to be a violence fight here, especially with all the shit going on with the weigh-ins and all that. What makes you so confident in the over there?
Well, what'd you tell me last week about Nico Price and Cowboy, right?
Yeah, you're right.
The thing that I'm seeing with them is actually how they strike. I know you said that he's good as this big power puncher, but if you watch him, he's actually sitting back a lot of the time. He's very patient. He kind of just throws a few things out there. And the reason he knocked out Stolze is because Stolze is trying to knock him out, right? You had a willing dance partner. You have a guy in Randy Brown who sits back, he jabs, he kind of looks for the wrestling. He doesn't engage a whole lot either without being at distance. And so just watching both of their striking styles, and Gooden's not knocking everybody out. He's got one knockout and 2 decisions. And Randy Brown, all his fights go to the second round, third rounds. I love over 1.5 in that. And then you can pair it with Gutierrez or Jackson or Godinez for me. Any of those are interchangeable.
Perfect. There you guys go. You guys got more than enough plays for you guys for this 9-fight card that we got tomorrow. Brandon, I really appreciate you jumping on here. Anything you want to plug on the back end? I know you got that podcast with DeFranco. Obviously, the link is in the description below for that if anybody wants to check that out. Anything else you want to plug, my brother?
Yeah, just the podcast is awesome, guys. If you follow my Instagram, that's tagged here. I post a lot of free games. Just anything I think is interesting, or if I'm liking a bet, I'll just throw up their page, whatever. So you can check some things out.
He's very big on the regional MMA as well too. So that's usually where you find a pretty good edge when, the odds makers aren't as privy to these regional fighters as guys like Brandon, who's very involved with the MMA world. So I do know he has a bunch of plays he does for CFFC and LFA and stuff like that. So make sure you guys check him out for that as well. Yeah, that's pretty much a wrap. Tomorrow, early start. Don't be napping. Don't be taking a dog for a walk or anything like that. 2 p.m. Eastern time prelim start tomorrow. 4 p.m. I believe is the main card. So make sure you guys tune in for that. And I will be doing my fight day live chat. I'm going to say let's do 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. 11 a.m. Eastern, fight day live chat. You guys can find me right here, taking all questions, comments, and concerns for the last minute plays you guys want to make on the UFC card tomorrow night. Last thing, actually, Brandon, any opinion on the big boxing match tomorrow? Wilder and Fury. Anything there, or do you not even bother with boxing? Does boxing not exist in your world?
Sometimes I hope Fury. I like Fury. I hope he gets it done, but it's tough for me. What do you think?
I'm taking Fury. I'll probably parlay him in a couple things. I just don't think that Wilder, can make that big of an improvement from one fight camp to the next. Like, you see some of the clips on this guy. The guy is not technical. He just throws hooks and fucking wide shots and just looks for that knockout. And it's worked out for certain guys. Francis Ngannou, another guy who kind of made it to the championship without making those kind of improvements. He is making some improvements. Shout out to Eric Nixick, obviously making some improvements with Ngannou there. But when you have that deathly power, you might not need to work on anything else there. And luckily for Wilder, he only has to worry about punching. No grappling, no clinching, no jiu-jitsu, nothing like that. But Tyson Fury has already shown us in 2 fights that he can go out there and put a whooping on Deontay Wilder, and I think he'll be able to do that as well. So I'll be chucking Fury into a couple parlays as well. All right, Brandon, appreciate you joining me. Appreciate the 150, 160 live viewers that we currently have as well. Again, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and then go and show my guy Brandon some love on IG. Link is in the description below, as well as this podcast with Santino DeFranco. Link is in the description below as well. Good luck in your bets, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. Let's make some money, fellas. Let's go.